ReAwakening by Thomley. Chapter 2. I needed answers, and I knew that if anyone could give them to me, Alex could. He'd had to find a lot of dirt on many scientists throughout his career. If there was a scandal to be found, surely Alex would know about it. It was the first thing I brought up when I saw him again. "Alex, have you ever heard of someone by the name of Xavier Holland?" I asked, eager for what I would find out. Alex paused for an extremely long time before replying.
Yes, I have.
He grimaced after the words left his mouth.
Xavier is the head of Nectar Corporation. He is one of the evilest, most devious men I have ever come across in this business. He doesn't think twice about sacrificing someone in the name of science, but he knows the laws so well that he always gets away with it. I have seen many good people die at his hand. Yet time and time again he goes unpunished. Why do you ask? Where did you hear about him? He isn't someone I would expect you to know.
I could sense he was trying to hide the anger in his reply, and I didn't want to push my luck. I knew how personally Alex took this sort of thing. His passion is what fueled the fire for his protest group. It was the biggest part of his life. Many people thought that he was anti-scientific progress, but he was actually just pro-quality of life. He agreed that most scientific advances were good, but not when they hurt or jeopardized other people's lives. He did not believe that it was for the greater good if it meant the sacrifice of humanity in any way. He thought that there was always a way to preserve life without forfeiting progress. If you listened to the media, you would think he was a quack from some religious cult. That was so far from the truth. I was uncertain whether or not to press him about this, but I needed to know. I had to find out who this man was and what connection he could have had to my father. This was my only chance. I would always wonder about it. "What kind of science is he involved in?" I pressed on, hoping he wouldn't notice my failure to tell him where I heard Xavier's name.
A little bit of everything, as far as I can tell. My group has had sources tell us stories about everything from stem cell research to pursuing darker scientific theories.
"What do you mean by darker scientific theories?" I tried not to laugh at the way he said it. I knew it wasn't a joke to him.
You know, black holes, atom splitting, cloning, and things of that nature.
"Have you ever heard anything about him dealing with anything related to immortality?"
Immortality? What, like vampires?
Alex laughed out loud, making me feel a little dumb. I don't know. I was just thinking out loud. Just ignore me. I'm super tired. I think I'm becoming delirious. I tried to laugh it off, but he had to notice how uncomfortable I had suddenly become. I must sound insane. I mean, immortality? I felt like was in a science fiction movie. What was I saying anyway? Did I think that my dad's death was somehow related to Xavier Holland and immortality? Just hearing the idea in my head sounded crazy. What exactly was immortality anyway? Sure, I had seen the movies about it. They were mainly about vampires in Transylvania. Those were all fiction stories made up to sell movie tickets. It wasn't real. I surely didn't believe in any of that nonsense. Surely people aren't actually walking around until the end of time after being bit by a bat. So why was I so preoccupied with this new theory that I had discovered? Maybe it was just because I was desperate to find a reason for my dad's death. Maybe I just needed some closure. We all did. This could be the way to make that happen. Or maybe it was because I felt a throbbing twinge in the pit of my stomach every time that I thought about what I read in that notebook. I couldn't shake the feeling that the pain I felt was intuition of some kind. Maybe what I told Alex was correct. Maybe I was just tired and delirious. I decided to sleep on it. I grabbed Alex by the hand and led him to the bedroom. We both climbed into bed and just laid there. I loved the way I felt in his arms. So warm, so safe, like nothing could get to me here. With all of these crazy emotions and thoughts surging through me, all I wanted was to be with him and forget about everything else. I could not wait to drift off to sleep and temporarily be freed of this burden. As soon as Alex turned off the lamp, we kissed and said our goodnights. I could feel myself slowly slipping away, with my head on his chest. This was my favorite way to sleep. Thankfully, this mess did not follow me into my subconscious. I had dreams about a happier time when I was surrounded by family and friends. There were no worries in the world, and I was free to do whatever made me happy. If only I could just stay in this dreamland forever. When I awoke the next morning, I was being held tightly in Alex's arms. I couldn't help but smile. I loved when he stayed here with me. Lately, the nighttime had been so lonely, especially when he stayed at his own home instead of mine. I hated to be alone with nothing more than my thoughts to occupy me, particularly now that they seemed to be taking a rather insane turn. When he was here, my mind was occupied with nothing but him. I liked it that way. It kept me calm and happy. However, it was beginning to get harder to block the other thoughts out. I knew the only way to make it better was to ask Alex for help. Was it the best decision? Who knows? I hated to do this, but I felt as if I had no other choice. I need to talk to you about something. I slowly sat up in bed, preparing myself for what I was about to say, worried about what his responses would be. Alex's expression appeared to be a mix between concern and apprehension. He must have known what was coming.
You can talk to me about anything, babe.
He replied with hesitation in his voice. It was now or never. When I was cleaning out my father's things after he died, I found a notebook. I took it home with me, sort of a memento I could hold on to. When I read it, I saw crazy things, many of them written about Xavier Holland.
So that is why you asked me about him yesterday.
Yes, it is. I tried to study his expression, but there was nothing to see. He was calm.
Well, what kinds of things did you read about?
I don't know, it was so hard to make out. A majority of the things he had written were jumbled together and made no sense. I don't think another scientist could even figure it out. There was one thing, though, that was mentioned many times.
Okay, what thing was that?
Immortality. My hands were trembling. Alex sat in bed very quietly. I immediately felt regret for telling him what I just had. I began to panic. Did I say too much? Why is he so quiet? I kept thinking to myself. My mind was racing. Just as I was about to scramble to find something to say, Alex spoke up.
About 2 years ago, I started hearing rumors that Xavier was experimenting with something he called Immortality serum. Nobody knew what was in it, or exactly what it could do. He injected several people with the concoction, and they died. No charges were brought against him because they were all willing participants. He was paying them for their service, and they had even signed release forms. Who would sign a release form agreeing to have some madman make you immortal? The craziest part was that these people were his former employees. The rumor is that once he finds a formula that works, he plans to inject himself with it. He thinks that it would give him undeniable power.
Oh my God! How could my dad possibly have been connected in this? Did you ever hear anything about the two of them being associated?
I don't know. I never heard your dad mentioned while any of this was going on. I would definitely remember that. It wasn't until the word of your dad's death spread that his name started coming up. The talk about the experiments and testing slowly faded away. It was as if something about his passing somehow affected Xavier or his research. I don't know in what capacity that is true, though. It is more like my own personal opinion. It could be completely coincidental. I tried hard to find out what that connection could possibly be, but I had no luck. My instincts told me that it really wasn't over, though. If he was that thirsty for immortal power then, I'm sure he is now. It only makes sense. That power-hungry mentality doesn't just go away.
Wow! I don't what to say. This is all so confusing. I have to find a way to find out how this is all connected. It is the only way I will be able to make peace with my father's death.
How are you going to do that? Amy, I worked at this for years and could never come up with anything. Trust me, I have tried everything.
I don't know yet, but I have to figure something out. Maybe I could uncover something you couldn't. After all, I know my dad and you don't. I sounded so confident, but it was all a facade.
I suppose that is true to some extent. Please be careful, Amy. Don't do anything rash. These are dangerous people. Be wary of where you dig. You might not like what you find.
Don't worry, I won't rush into anything. I got out of bed and headed to the bathroom to take a shower. It was as if a weight had been lifted off of me. I had been keeping this secret inside of me for 2 years now. It had become a burden I had to bear alone. I had been too ashamed and frightened to tell anyone about it before today. Who would have believed me anyway? To anyone else, I would have just been some girl whose grief had turned her into a lunatic. I felt a strange combination of ease and determination now that my secret was out in the open. I had no idea what to do or where to start, but I finally felt hope that I could get to the bottom of things. It wouldn't be an easy thing to do, and it looked as if I had some long days ahead of me. This was something that had to be done. The shower was so relaxing, and my mind was clear for the first time in a very long time. I shampooed my hair, shaved my legs, and just stood there soaking up every drop of hot water. I wanted to savor each second of this new, semi-peaceful feeling I had. I turned off the water and dried myself off. I slid open the shower curtain and saw Alex standing there, just smiling. I smiled back at him and pulled him into the towel with me. I loved him so much, and he was making my life so much easier. What would I have done without him? His support was the only thing that had been getting me through all of my issues lately. I hugged him and told him to have a good day at work. I would miss him, but I was glad that I would have time to myself today. I was surely going to be preoccupied with coming up with some sort of action plan. I had no idea what I was going to do, but one thing was certain. I would avenge my father.
Please like and subscribe for more free audiobook content.